I was roughly 9 years old when my parents truly discovered my love for the outdoors. And by outdoors, I mean being thrown out of the class. Whenever they would go for a parent-teacher meeting, the first thing my class teacher would say is that your son, Rishabh, puts the pro in problems. And my parents' solution to that problem was even bigger than the problem. They sent me to boarding school. So I packed my bags and I'm off to Sherwood College, Nainital. Bag and baggage both together. Now Sherwood shaped me in many ways, but there is one particular incident that I would really like to talk about today. 5th of June 2008. I sat in a hall very similar to yours, of course on the other side. Today you have a 29-year-old Rishabh speaking to you. I had a slightly older 65-year-old man speaking to me. His name was Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. While his speech had so many parts that were great, there was one part of it that really stayed with me. He spoke about this incident where he had been preparing for this role, and one day before the final, he fell ill. That led to hospitalization, that led to him being shattered, and it was a role that he had really prepared hard for. And that is when his father, the legendary poet, Mr. Harivansh Rai Bachchan, visited him in the hospital and told him, "Son, man ka ho to acha, man ka na ho to aur bhi acha." I did not really realize what those words meant at that time, but life has this funny way of bringing things back to you. So it does come back in my life also as a boomerang. 2015, I had just finished my board exams and I was, like most of you here, very ambitious about my career. The choices were very dynamic. There was this point where I wanted to be a forest ranger, I wanted to be a zookeeper, I wanted to be an astronaut, I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, a firefighter, a lawyer, but then finally also Spider-Man in the middle, I forgot to mention that. But finally I settled for something that was more realistic, being an entrepreneur. Between the all of us here, I think being Spider-Man would have been easier, but yes, finally it came to entrepreneurship. But the journey could not start like that. I needed to get some form of formal qualification, some form of education in order to become an entrepreneur. And for that, I chose chartered accountancy. And not to do it from a city like Delhi, I came back to my hometown of Bareilly. Bareilly is a tier 4 city. It's not like Timbuktu, but yes, it is a tier 4. And my friends had warned me at that point of time that you're making a mistake. Even my parents questioned the choice. But I was 19, I was stubborn, and I was going all the way out to prove myself. And that is where, I had underestimated the social implication that it would have. So moving from Delhi to Bareilly was like moving from, let's say, peri peri pizza to moong dal overnight. And that's where my journey really started. So for the first few exams were very good. I passed all of them. But then there was an exam which I failed in. And for the first time in my life, I saw failure. Yeah, so just around that same period of time when I had failed for the first time, there also happened to be another crisis that came up. One of our managers at our family business units had embezzled a lot of money. It was a crisis for my family, but it was also a crisis for me. But I also looked at it as a career advancement opportunity. So, like a stupid guy, I went to my parents that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Can you let me run this unit? And I was shocked when they said yes. So I went from aspiring CA student to a full-time motorcycle salesman overnight. And I learned a lot there. Selling value over cost, customer related issues, and believe me, motorcycle customers don't hold back. They would often tell me, have you sold me a cycle or a motorcycle? And that became my university of learning. Service related issues, sales related issues, scaling, teams, working with a much larger team. I got to really learn a lot. But socially, it was brutal. Imagine you're 20 and you're a college dropout, you're selling motorcycles, whereas your friends are earning degrees which actually get them some form of recognition. And to make things worse, social media. Again, every time I would scroll social media, I would see my friends uploading pictures of campus fests, whereas what was I doing? I was uploading pictures of, let's say, motorcycle deliveries. To console me, my father often would tell me that, son, it is not about where you go to school or where you go to university. It's finally about what you would do with your life. Well, wise words, but that did not stop a 21-year-old Rishabh from scrolling LinkedIn and again looking at his life and saying that I messed up. My parents around that same period of time encouraged me also towards another education, which was travel. They said that exposure is education without a classroom. So there I was, climbing mountains in Rwanda, washing cars after driving by glaciers in Iceland. I was backpacking across Eastern Europe. I even went and tracked gorillas in Uganda. And of course, scuba diving in Lakshadweep is right there. But there was one thing common amongst all of these trips that I made. It was that I saw plastic litter all over, no matter where I went. In fact, my scuba diving trip, when I saw so much litter down below, it transitioned from finding Nemo to finding Eno. And that is also a point when plastic became a personal problem to me. Speaking of personal problems, I was also dealing with another personal problem, which was related to my family business. It was almost time that I had realized that a family business is always a family business, and it will continue to remain one. In order to build your own identity, you have to build something of your own. And therefore, I wanted to start my second innings in entrepreneurship. And that is when, again, I went back to my parents and I told them that this is how I've been feeling. So again, they shocked me by saying, yes, son, you should have done it much earlier if you felt that way. And there again, the journey ahead wasn't easy. What did I know about waste? And waste was a sector that was dear to me. So for the next 2 years, we researched right from solid waste, wet waste, municipal waste, electronic waste, and all those plans looked great on Excel sheets, and honestly, they remained there. It was only in COVID, 2020 roughly, when I had visited a friend's sugar factory, that I heard him complaining about how sugarcane husk, a primary raw material that they use to generate electricity, was becoming difficult to procure because the person who would supply it to them had now started making some form of plates and bowls with it. That is where the eureka moment came from. Agricultural waste, something we had never thought about, and slightly more easier to collect. So again, now I moved to Trivandrum in 2020. We incorporated Kudrat, and the journey really began from there. When I moved to Bareilly, people said I'll regret it. When I dropped out of CA, people said I'll surely regret it. When I stopped selling motorcycles, people said you have gone bonkers. And then when I said we'll use agricultural waste and then we'll make tableware out of it, they said I don't want to say what they said. But when I look back, that same person who was afraid of making these choices now stands proudly by them. And one of the biggest learnings that I did have in my life is that opportunity has a very sly habit of coming into our lives through the back door. And it mostly comes in the form of failure or temporary defeat. So my message to you for this part is that don't wait for the perfect opportunity to arise. Rather, look around you, look at the imperfect opportunities, water them, and they will grow into the opportunities that you had once been chasing. And to add to that, always remember that the grass is not greener on the other side. It is greener where you water it. Now I've spoken enough about grass and water, so let me take you to the ocean. When I moved to Trivandrum in 2020 to set up Kudrat initially, I bumped into a bunch of rocket scientists from ISRO at a barber shop. They didn't give me lessons in rocket science, rather they introduced me to surfing. And we are not talking about the internet. Some of you may be thinking about the internet here. And as soon as I rode my first wave, I was hooked to it. Every weekend, every holiday, whenever I could, I would make it a point to go surfing. And when you surf, there are days of good waves, there are days of bad waves, and there are days of no waves at all. On one of those days, when there were no waves at all, my first instructor of the time, Kanan, told me that, Rishabh, why don't you just paddle all the way to the rocks and then come back? It'll help you build your arm strength. And like Eklavya followed Dronacharya, I also followed my instructor and I went all alone, straight out for the rocks. Getting there was quite easy, but on the way back I noticed that my board wasn't moving. I tried hard. The state level swimmer in me could not still make it, and no matter how hard I tried, I stayed in that same place. In that moment, there was a thought that came to my mind that maybe this might be it. And I had also tried shouting for help, but I was so far away that I couldn't really connect with anyone there. And when I thought about the fact that this might be it, what were the thoughts that really came to my mind? Of course, I did think about my loved ones, but secondly, I spent a lot of time thinking about the things that I hadn't done. The risky decisions that I hadn't taken at work, the stand-up open mic that I had never done in my life, the trips with my friends that I always kept postponing, the apologies to my old friends that I had never made, the feelings to the girl whom I liked that I had never confessed, and also that one game of football that I wanted to play with the kids on the beach, which I was always procrastinate about. Luckily, I found that my board was not straight, and when I straightened it, I was able to reach the beach. But once I did get there, there was a very powerful thought that came to my mind, that in life, it's not the things that we do that we regret. It's the things that we don't do that we really regret. And that left a very powerful mark on me. One of my favorite quotes from Michelangelo is that the real danger to mankind is not that we aim too high and we don't get there. It is that we aim too low and we get there. With that being said, I have a final clear message to all of you today, which I would like to read out. Don't aim low, don't hesitate, and don't wait for the perfect wave. Take the leap, start the thing, chase the idea, build whatever it is, Kudrat for you. Because tomorrow's regrets are written by today's hesitations. And always remember, the grass is always greener, is not greener on the other side, it is greener where you water it.